based on a unique software, Weave aims to digitize the footwear and apparel industry. I am very pleased to have Szilard Surdok, chairman and founder of Weave, as guest today. Warm welcome, Szilard.
Hello.
To our audience, please tell us, what is Weave? What do you do?
Weave is actually a CRM supply chain solution, and it can create the whole process from the part where you choose a material to the final shoe. But we do this not just for shoes, we do that for clothes, and we can do that for any other product. Today, the industry is not doing this in a digitalized form, so they are still using Excel spreadsheets and phone.
I read that Weave has the whole process from concept to reality. Can you explain a little bit more? I imagine a designer scratching out the design somewhere on a piece of paper and then starts to produce or the production process. Where do you step in with Weave?
Actually, it's even more complex because there are two kind of family groups. One is the white shoe, the other one is the brown shoe. The brown shoes are the leather shoes. Most of them small boutique companies, very old, traditional. And then we have the white shoes, which we all know, the sneakers. So the big corporate companies. Everybody has a different process. Everybody has a different design approach. And we are trying to get all their different approaches into one work stream.
I understand. I read that you founded in 2020 or in the beginning of 2021. I'm always curious to hear why and how did that come to life?
It actually was a very funny story because my background is fintech. So I just came back from a core banking IPO in the US and Corona started.
Nothing to do with fashion.
Nothing to do with fashion. And it was just the start of Corona and supply was the topic. And I just crossed over this kind of a solution because there was a guy who already did some ideas on that. And I realized that supply chain, again, is becoming a big problem. So it was a spontaneous idea to go into this. And compared to fintech people, working with people who are aiming to be beautiful and wonderful dressed, it was the best experience I ever had.
Let me talk about the digitization a little bit. So was there a warm welcome for your solution, or were especially designer or producers rather hesitant to step into this kind of new way of, let's say, the whole chain, the process chain?
Yeah. The top management level loves our solution because the key problem in the fashion industry is that you cannot produce cheaper anymore than we produce today. So if you once achieve a situation in an economy where you cannot save money, and in Corona, once the revenue started to go down, lots of these companies went out of business. So the management teams, they liked us because we are cost-saving exercise. The people in the business didn't like us at all. But the designers in particular, they love us because we are empowering their capabilities. And today, a lot of these companies between the brands and suppliers is run by designers. A lot of time, a designer is working for several brands. So the designer is becoming more and more important in the fashion and shoe industry. And our tool is giving him more access to all the people in the process, because so far he was completely disconnected in his little room, designing whatever was required. So we have friends and we have enemies.
I understand. So I always keep the enemies close and the friends even closer, I'd say.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about the designer again. So I understand, or I read the sample folders before, especially for the material, they were actually flown from one place to another so that they could take a look at the samples. And now this is also all digitized, right?
Yes.
But for a designer, the haptic touch, isn't that a necessity?
Absolutely. So most of the brands are in the US. All the design of all the clothes we are still wearing are mainly in Italy. All the production is in China and Vietnam. However, since Trump and the Chinese started to do all the new tax issues across the borders, a lot of the production went to Mexico. So the shoe industry in Mexico is very, very big. The main problem is you choose a material, then you need to build this shoe where you need a designer, but you need at the same time from all over the places, all the people. So they were all traveling to meet and to agree on the complete collection. And a lot of the companies don't do the collections anymore themselves. They use very specific external companies to do the whole exercise.
Also white labeling?
White labeling, yes. Yeah. So for example, there's a big Italian designer house who's working with PVH, where Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger are the main brands. Nobody of Tommy Hilfiger or Calvin Klein is designing any shoes or producing them anymore. It's all done in Italy.
Okay, I understand. But let's go back to the haptic touch. So is that lost overall, or is just like the decision process at a different point?
The most funniest part of this industry is that in the US they all meet twice a year. They take their regular big books with them where you see all the materials, and you write on a paper the order what you want to order. This is
on paper.
On paper, yes, and they handshake. Because as it used to be 25 years ago, they still do it the same way. However, for generic materials like leather or classical black stuff, black materials, whatever, our system is perfect. But each year on the fashion, or Linea Pelle, for example, is a very big fashion show, there are always coming some very new materials. These new materials, the design and everybody wants to touch.
Okay.
So we can cover 80% of the existing materials which are repeatable, but the fancy new stuff always
is still touched
exactly.
in real life. Okay,
yes.
Understood. You emphasize a lot the sustainability factor.
Yes.
Especially the fashion industry is always criticized regarding sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit more if and how Weave helps to be more sustainable also in the fashion industry?
Yes. First of all, in the US, there's around 50 to 60 kilo clothes per year that is being thrown away. So that's just one figure. Lucky to our children, they are much more sensitive regarding sustainability than we were. There are coming now finally some very interesting technologies that can take plastic garbage, and create it into real leather, which is even better than real leather. But our children don't want to buy these shoes anymore.
Yeah.
They don't want a cow die for the shoe. So in our system, because every supplier needs to be chosen for the material by the brand, we have all the attributes which are required that you are even sustainable. And sustainable is just the easy part.
Where is the hard part?
Traceability.
Yes.
So the European Community is leading this effort. By 2026 December, they asked each supplier to prove on which land the cow died for which shoe.
Okay, so the shoes I'm wearing, in the end, I can trace where it really comes from.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, I understand. Do you believe that at some point in the future, the fashion industry can even become like a circular economy, or is that too far-fetched?
It will be a circular economy because we always live in a macro cosmos, and it will be all decided by the consumer. And the consumer is pushing for all these changes because there was no change in this industry for the last 50 years.
Absolutely. Let's change perspective a little bit, but still with the topic of the sustainability. Your platform is data-driven and energy intensive, so also a topic with sustainability. How do you care for your internal sustainability within your own company? Are there any initiatives that you have there?
Well, we don't travel anymore.
You don't travel anymore.
That's very simple.
Yeah.
We don't have to travel.
Yeah.
And we rarely meet. And most of the meetings are easily done by video calls. Mm-hmm. And today it's even it's approved by the society that you don't need to be present anymore.
Absolutely.
And since we are a technical company, I work with a lot of technical people who don't like to travel at all.
Yes, I know that. Let's talk about those people. So I just said, like, your platform is data driven, and of course you need a lot of software and developers. We hear that it is really hard to have the right talents for this. How do you struggle with that topic? Do you have the right people working for you?
Yes. So first of all, to find a person who has the skills and the industry knowledge doesn't exist. So I need to get the people who have the skills. Normally these skills are not even enough to build what we are asking for. So,
sorry to jump in here. So like to have like the tech people understand the fashion industry, is that what you're talking about?
That's one
so
problem,
like,
but then you still need to understand all the technology used in the fashion industry,
at that
which
level.
normally
Yes.
he doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's actually two main problems. We cannot go to the university and take a student, because the kind of solutions we are building are state of the art, and the people who are working for me, anybody in Microsoft or Google would take them with a hand kiss, but they don't want to work for these corporate companies. So I need to offer them a complete different environment where they have a complete free spirit. So we have no KPIs, no controls, nothing. You need to handle their normal private life because they don't want to take care about their social security or their insurances. So they just want to be for themselves and be in their own world. And that's what you need to provide them. So they don't even want to travel, therefore. So they live in their own little world and want to do whatever they want. And they believe only in their own ideas. So you cannot even criticize it. But you can look at the results. And normally the results are outstanding.
So you're telling me that you make it as comfortable as possible for them to work for you, and that's your advantage that you have.
Exactly.
And so, okay, I understand.
Actually, Google did the same in the beginning, that
Yes,
you
true.
lived there, you
Yeah,
know.
true.
So they live at home, but they work on a regular basis. And they also choose the work they want. So there's no plan what they need to do. There is a plan what needs to be done, and they
Yes,
choose
okay.
what they want to do.
And this works
Yes,
perfectly?
absolutely.
Nice to hear. So let's talk about your organizational structure a little bit. So I just heard your talents are spread all over the world, I
Yes.
assume. Okay. So how is it geographically done? I mean, you have your hub in Switzerland. Is that correct? Yeah. So what are like how is Switzerland as a business hub working for this particular business where your developers are spread all over the world? Where are the struggles?
The key point is mindset. So working for me already with Russian resources or with a Chinese resources is very difficult. Working with a Polish resources who's more European community orientated, very simple. Working with Americans is the greatest to do because they can simplify anything that is complex, but they are completely in a different time zone. So it's very difficult to work with California. But we use a lot of resources in California, but you need to split the workforce between the very senior people and then the ones who are more junior. And most of the senior people we still have in Switzerland. And
Okay.
everybody wants to be in Switzerland. So you rather pay more for the best people, but then they are here. And if the best of your team are here, it's enough. They can manage all the others, no matter from where they come, no matter what mindset.
So if you had to start again, you would still choose Switzerland as a hub?
I would always choose Switzerland as a hub from a compliance and legal perspective, because building a company here and the way we run companies and how companies are controlled is very outstanding, because you always want to sell your company. And selling a Swiss company has a high standard. You will never find for any startup company in the world the same standard. From a mindset to have support when you do a new idea, Switzerland is not the strongest supporter. It's much more fun to do something in the US because everybody supports anything. And so if it's about the idea, I would like to be in Silicon Valley. If
Okay.
it's about structure and execution, I love to be in Switzerland. So obviously I want to be successful. I have to be here, because I need to execute the idea. But just doing ideas, Silicon
Like
Valley
for
is the
more the
one.
inspirational
Yes.
part and the openness, and it's more like the
Yes.
Silicon Valley. Okay, I understand. But there, I have to talk about that. You combine it very well, actually. In March, you had a big announcement because US billionaire Mark Benioff invested substantially into Weave. I mean, how did that come about?
Yes.
How do you meet a person like Mark Benioff?
I was in a lucky position to get to know him through the World Economic Forum. And Salesforce had a very difficult time in the past, and he got a very strong support from a US investment bank to make the company successful.
So his own company. Yeah.
Exactly. And that person who runs that investment bank is my mentor for more than a decade. So sometimes the world seems to be so big, but actually it's very small.
Tell me a little bit more about him. So I read that he's not only engaged financially, but also as an advisor. So how is it to work with him?
He's 3 to 4 steps ahead of everything.
Really?
And he knows already things he don't even talk. So when he tells you something, what you should do or which direction you should go, he already knows the next 2, 3 steps. And for me, I need somebody who guides me, because I'm faced with a lot of different options, and all these options sometimes have such a strong decision power that I can't go back. So I need always to understand which partner in which industry I'm using, which is the partner of the future. If I take the bad horse or the wrong horse, I will not be able to win the race anymore. And I can't change during the race my horse.
Absolutely. So you said that he is always like 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, but I think you are the same kind of guy, because you told me already about your next steps. Let's talk about the next steps or the outlook. What's the plan with Weave? What's going on?
We are in a very lucky position that the challenges which we are solving are challenges for most of the industries. And most of our suppliers are already present in other industries. So the only reason why they came and supported Weave is, so when you talk about leather, it's not just about shoe, it's about a couch, it's about car leather. So, and all these industries are facing more or less the same process issues, because digital transformation seems to have happened, but it didn't actually.
Not yet in this industry. Yeah.
So for us is to go into all these different industries, which is a very, very unique situation, because we already have the client now who's asking us to do that and is already using us. So if I go into another industry, I don't need to find a new client. I have the client already. Yeah.
Let's go to the outlook a little bit further. So you wanted to talk about how big Weave is going to be or already is. And also I'd like to know what's happening in the next 1 or 2 years. The market seems to be big enough to grow endlessly, I assume. So let me throw in just the word unicorn. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Everybody talks about unicorn, and most of them say it is built by revenue. A unicorn is a company that has a valuation which goes over 1 billion. And for having a valuation of a company of 1 billion, you need around at least 100 million of revenue. And you need to grow enormously fast. And normally you need enormous lot of money to do that. So scalability is the biggest issue. In theory today, any startup that is focused on a very particular area has a lot of difficulty. So investors are looking for companies who have a broad option of investment and revenue areas where they can grow. Yeah. In our case, we are selling the same problem to all industries, and we already have the client. So for us, the scaling is very simple, and we don't need so much money for it. And today, what in technology changed, in the past, technology was managed by the company who was selling it. Today, with these SaaS platforms, you actually push the work out to your customer. So the kind of suppliers who we work with already are using our system, and they are just asking for some small little updates to be able to use it also for alternative industry. So the key difference for us is not just that we have the opportunity to grow, we don't need that much amount of money to make it happen.
Yeah, I see. So is Weave already a unicorn?
No.
By when?
No. Well, Mark Benioff needed with Salesforce more than 10 years. We are in year 4. So if I achieve it in year 10, I would be happy.
I hope so too. See, Lloyd, since I have such a great personality sitting here, to come to a conclusion of our talk, for anyone out there who wants to start their own business, do you have like 1, 2 essential tips on how you power through?
I was lucky to go to the University of St. Gallen, and I'm still doing the master entrepreneurship classes. And for me, working for HP 12 years and being on the corporate side, and HP luckily was in that time like Google, it was a startup company, a lot of startup companies in a corporate environment. And a lot of people want to go into a startup company immediately after university. I think it's a possibility, but very few characters are able to do that because it's very challenging. And at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you will sell to the corporate companies. And to be in a company first, which might be your client in the future, helped me a lot. So I get a lot of support through Salesforce or Microsoft. These companies are like HP. I exactly know how they work. I know what they need. I know how to do it. And you need to talk with a lot of people. And the only thing you have what you don't have in a startup company is you have no time and no money. So you are waiting for long decision processes which make a huge impact on your company. But if you haven't worked in a corporate company and you try to sell them, good luck.
So your recommendation is you need to know the corporate world before you start your startup. By the way, the goal of a startup is to become a corporate in the end if it's successful, right?
Yes, you put it to the point.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.